The war had lasted 12 years, and the Galactic Coalition was losing. Admiral Thistlevorn stood before the viewing port of her command ship, watching another world burn. Talaxis 4, home to 3 billion souls, was now nothing more than ash and screaming. The Vrexel had taken it in 6 days. 6 days for 3 billion lives to end on. She pressed her four-fingered hand against the cold glass. Her reflection stared back at her gray skin, 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern. The ceremonial scars of her rank cut into her cheeks. She looked old. She felt older. "Admiral," her aide said from behind her, "High Command is requesting your presence at the Emergency Council." "Another emergency," Vorn said quietly. "When everything is an emergency, nothing is." She turned from the window and walked through the corridors of her ship. Officers stepped aside as she passed. They did not meet her eyes. They knew what she knew. They all knew. The coalition was dying. The council chamber was filled with representatives from 47 species. Vorn took her seat among them and waited for the arguing to begin. It did not take long. "We have lost 17 systems in the past standard year," the Keth representative said. His insectoid body clicked with agitation. 17. At this rate, the Vrexel will reach the core worlds within a decade. "Then we must negotiate," the Pelian ambassador replied. She was a tall creature, her body made mostly of light. "Surely the Vrexel can be reasoned with." "The Vrexel do not negotiate," Warren said. The chamber fell silent. They do not want territory. They do not want resources. They want to consume. They want to grow. They want to turn every living thing in this galaxy into raw material for their hive minds. You cannot negotiate with hunger. The silence stretched on. "Then, what do you suggest, Admiral?" the Keth asked. Vorn hesitated. She had thought about this for months. She had run the calculations 1,000 times. She had prayed to gods she did not believe in for another answer. But there was no other answer. "The humans," she said. The chamber erupted. "Absolutely not." The Pelian ambassador shouted, her light flickering red with anger. "They are primitives. They have only been spacefaring for 200 years. They are unstable," the Keth agreed. "Violent, unpredictable. They fight among themselves constantly. They are what we need," Vorn said, her voice cutting through the noise. "The Vrexel adapt to every strategy we use. They learn our tactics and counter them within days. But the humans do not have tactics. They do not have doctrine. They simply fight. And they do not stop fighting until they win or they are dead." "That is not a strategy," the Pelian said. "That is madness." "Yes," Vorn agreed. "And madness is exactly what the Vrexel have never faced." The debate lasted 7 hours. In the end, desperation won. The coalition sent a message to the human government, accepting their repeated offers to join the war. The response came within hours. 3 weeks later, Vorn watched the human fleet arrive at Karsis Prime. The planet was critical. It was an agri-world, producing food for 17 star systems. If it fell, billions would starve. The Vrexel had surrounded it with a blockade of 2,000 ships. Their ground forces had already landed. The capital city was burning. The human fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. 300 ships, small by coalition standards. The flagship was called the Unconquered, which Vorn found either inspiring or foolish. She had not decided which. "Admiral Vorn," a voice said over the communication channel. It was rough, deep, and spoke the common galactic language with a strange accent. "This is Admiral James Wheeler of the 7th Expeditionary Force. We are here to help." "Admiral Wheeler," Vorn replied. "I must be honest with you. The situation is desperate. The Vrexel have 2,000 ships. You have 300. The mathematics do not favor us." There was a pause. Then Wheeler laughed. Admiral Vaughn, I've been doing this job for 30 years. The mathematics have never favored us. We stopped caring about mathematics a long time ago. Vaughn did not know how to respond to this. We will engage the enemy fleet, Wheeler continued. But that is not how we will win this battle. We are deploying ground forces. Ground forces? Vaughn's secondary eyes blinked in confusion. Admiral, the Vrexel have infested the entire continent. Ground combat against them is suicide. Maybe, Wheeler said. But my people are very good at surviving suicide. The communication ended. Vaughn watched as dozens of human transport ships broke from the fleet and dove toward the planet's surface. They moved through the Vrexel blockade like water through cracks in stone, taking losses but never stopping. What are they doing? Her aide asked. I do not know, Vaughn admitted. But I think we are about to learn something about humans that we did not know before. On the surface of Karsis Prime, Colonel Marcus Chen felt the transport ship shake as enemy fire struck its hull. He stood in the cargo bay with 500 soldiers, all of them strapped into their drop seats, all of them checking their weapons one final time. 30 seconds to landing. The pilot shouted over the intercom. Chen looked at his soldiers. They were young, most of them. This was their first major engagement. They were scared. He could see it in their eyes, in the way they gripped their rifles. He understood. He was scared too. He had read the reports about the Vrexel. He had seen what they did to prisoners. He had seen the images from Talaxis 4, but fear was just another weapon. You could let it control you, or you could use it to make yourself stronger. Listen up, he shouted. In 30 seconds, those doors open, and we step into hell. The Vrexel think they know what war is. They think they understand violence. They have never met us. They have never faced soldiers who refuse to die. Today, we teach them something new. Today, we teach them fear. The soldiers roared in response. The transport hit the ground hard. The doors blew open, and Colonel Marcus Chen led his soldiers into the burning ruins of a dying world dot behind him. 40,000 more humans followed. The Battle of Karsis Prime had begun. Lieutenant Kiva of the Aleph Compact had been assigned to observe the human forces. It was supposed to be a simple job. Watch them fight, record their tactics, report back to Coalition Command. She expected to document a quick defeat. What she witnessed instead broke something inside. That the capital city of Karsis Prime was called Vareth. Before the invasion, 2 million people had lived there. Now it was a graveyard of broken buildings and burning streets. The Vrexel had transformed entire districts into their organic architecture walls of flesh and bone. Towers that pulsed with alien life. The humans did not care. Colonel Chen led his forces into the city center on the first day. The Vrexel sent 10,000 warriors to meet them. These were not simple creatures. Each one stood 3 meters tall, covered in biomechanical armor that could stop most weapons. Their claws could cut through metal. Their bodies could regenerate from wounds that would kill any. Other species thought the humans killed them anyway. Lieutenant Kiva watched from a ruined building as a human squad engaged a Vrexel patrol. There were 12 humans against 40 Vrexel. The mathematics said the humans should retreat. The humans did not retreat. They used weapons Kiva had never seen before. Not elegant energy weapons like the Coalition used. These were crude things that fired metal projectiles at high speed. They were loud. They were messy. They were terrifyingly effective, but it was not the weapons that shocked Kiva. It was how the humans used them. A Vrexel warrior charged at a young human soldier. The soldier fired until his weapon was empty. The Vrexel kept coming. So the soldier threw his weapon at the creature's face, pulled out a knife, and jumped onto its back. He stabbed it 17 times before it finally fell. Then he picked up his weapon, reloaded it, and moved on to the next target. "These are not soldiers," Kiva whispered into her recording device. "These are something else." The fighting continued for 3 days without pause. The humans did not sleep. They did not rest. They pushed deeper into the city, block by block, building by building. When the Vrexel collapsed tunnels to trap them, they dug their way out. When the Vrexel flooded areas with poison gas, they put on masks and kept fighting. When ammunition ran low, they took weapons from dead enemies and used those instead. On the 4th day, Kiva watched a human soldier get his arm torn off by a Vrexel. The soldier looked at the wound. He looked at the Vrexel that had hurt him. Then he picked up his rifle with his remaining arm, shot the creature in the head, and walked to a medical station on his own 2 feet. He was back in combat 6 hours later, with a metal arm attached where his flesh one used to be. How? Kiva asked him later, when there was a brief pause in the fighting. "How do you keep going?" The soldier looked at her with tired eyes. His name was Private Torres. He was 22 years old, which Kiva had learned was very young by human standards. "You want to know our secret?" Torres said. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "We don't have one. We're just too stubborn to die. When I was a kid, my grandmother told me a story about my ancestors. They survived wars, diseases, famines, disasters. Every time the universe tried to kill them, they refused to go. That stubbornness is in our blood. The Vrexel think they're fighting soldiers. They're not. They're fighting 10,000 years of survival instinct." Kiva did not fully understand, but she was beginning to. The Vrexel adapted their tactics on the 5th day. They had learned that direct combat was costly, so they changed their approach. They began attacking at night, using the darkness to hide their movements. They targeted supply lines. They set traps. The humans adapted faster. Colonel Chun organized his forces into smaller units that could move independently. They stopped relying on supply lines and began living off the land, eating whatever they could find, using captured equipment. They turned the Vrexel's own traps against them, and they began to fight at night, too. Kiva watched a night battle from a tower overlooking what used to be a marketplace. The darkness was complete. No lights, no stars visible through the smoke that covered the sky. She could see nothing, but she could hear everything: gunfire, screams, explosions, the wet sound of blades cutting through flesh. And underneath it all, a sound she had never heard before on any battlefield. The humans were laughing. Not happy laughter. Not the laughter of joy. This was something darker. Something that came from a place beyond fear, beyond hope, beyond any emotion Kiva had a name for. "They've gone mad," she said into her recording device. "The humans have gone completely mad." But as the sun rose and she saw the results of the night's fighting, she realized she was wrong. The humans had not gone mad. They had simply let go of the things that held other species back. Fear of death. Fear of pain. Fear of the darkness. The Vrexel had killed 200 humans that night. The humans had killed 3,000 Vrexel. On the 7th day, the Vrexel began to retreat. Kiva could not believe it. In 12 years of war, she had never seen the Vrexel retreat from anything. They did not know how to retreat. Their hive mind did not understand the concept, but they were retreating now. She found Colonel Chun standing in the ruins of a building that had once been a school. He was covered in blood, most of it not his own. His eyes were empty, staring at nothing. "Colonel," she said, "the enemy is retreating. You have won." Chun did not look at her. "We haven't won anything yet. We've just convinced them that we're not worth the trouble. But they'll be back. They always come back. How do you know?" "Because that's what we would do." Kiva felt a chill run through her body. For the first time, she wondered if the coalition had made a mistake by bringing the humans into this war, not because they might lose, because of what it might mean. If they won, the humans pushed forward, chasing the retreating Vrexel. They did not stop to rest. They did not stop to celebrate. They simply kept moving deeper into enemy territory, closer to something that Kiva did not yet understand. But she would understand soon. They all would. Deep beneath the surface of Karsis Prime, the Vrexel Overmind was confused. This had never happened before. The Overmind was not a single creature. It was a network of billions of connected minds, processing information from across the galaxy. It had conquered 1,000 worlds. It had defeated 100 species. It had calculated every possible threat and developed countermeasures for each one. It had no countermeasure for the humans. The data did not make sense. The humans were physically weak compared to Vrexel warriors. Their technology was inferior. Their numbers were small. By every calculation, they should have been destroyed in the first hour of combat. Instead, they were winning. The Overmind analyzed the battle data again. It studied every engagement, every tactic, every decision the humans made. It looked for patterns. It looked for weaknesses. It found nothing useful. The humans did not fight to win. They did not fight to survive. They fought as if the act of fighting itself was the purpose. They took risks that no rational species would take. They sacrificed themselves for gains that were strategically meaningless. One human had thrown himself onto a Vrexel explosive device to save 3 of his companions. The device had destroyed his body completely. The 3 companions had then fought with increased ferocity, killing 20 Vrexel before they were finally stopped. The mathematics of this exchange made no sense. 1 human life for 20 Vrexel lives was favorable, yes. But the original human could not have known that his companions would perform so well. He had simply acted. Without calculation. Without logic. The Overmind tried to model this behavior. It failed. How do you predict an enemy that does not think? Above ground, Colonel Chun led his forces toward the northern continent. Intelligence reports indicated that the main Vrexel hive core was located there, buried beneath a mountain range. Destroying it would end the Vrexel presence on Karsis Prime permanently. The journey took 2 weeks. The Vrexel fought them every step of the way, but something had changed. The alien warriors were hesitant now. They attacked in smaller groups. They retreated more quickly. They made mistakes. Private Torres noticed it first. "They're scared," he said one night, sitting around a small fire with his squad. His metal arm gleamed in the firelight. "Look at how they move. Look at how they fight. That's fear. Can they even feel fear?" Another soldier asked. "They're like insects, right? Hive mind and all that." "Everything can feel fear," Torres said. "It's the oldest emotion in the universe. Even insects know to run from fire." Lieutenant Kiva, who had continued to follow the humans despite her growing unease, listened from nearby. She had been recording everything, sending daily reports back to Coalition Command. The responses she received were increasingly concerned. "The Council is worried," she told Colonel Chun the next morning. "They did not expect you to be this effective." Chun laughed, but it was a tired sound. "They brought us here to win a battle. Did they think we would do it politely? They thought you would follow Coalition doctrine. Minimum casualties. Controlled engagement. Strategic withdrawal when necessary. We don't do strategic withdrawal. We do victory or death. Usually both." Kiva shook her head. "That is not sustainable. You have lost nearly half your ground forces. 19,000 soldiers. How can you continue?" Chun stopped walking. He turned to face her, and for a moment, Kiva saw something in his eyes that frightened her more than any Vrexel ever had. "Lieutenant, let me tell you something about humans. We come from a world that tried to kill us every day for millions of years. Predators, diseases, natural disasters. Other humans. We survived all of it. Do you know why? Because we learned that survival is not about avoiding death. It's about making death afraid of you. He gestured toward his soldiers, still marching toward the distant mountains. Every one of them knows they might die today. They accepted that fact before they ever set foot on this planet. But they also know that before they die, they will take as many enemies with them as possible. And the enemies that survive will remember them. We'll fear them. We'll tell stories about them for generations. That is madness, Kiva said. No, that is humanity. They reached the mountain range on the 18th day. The Vrexel had fortified it heavily. Thousands of warriors waited in the passes. Defensive structures covered every approach. The Overmind had decided that this was where the humans would finally be stopped. Colonel Chun studied the defenses through his viewing device. Behind him, his remaining 21,000 soldiers waited in silence. They want us to attack head-on, he said. Funnel us through the passes where they can surround us. What will you do? Kiva asked. Chun smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. We're going to do exactly what they expect. And then we're going to do something they don't expect. The attack began at dawn. Human forces charged the main pass, thousands of soldiers running directly into Vrexel defenses. It was exactly the kind of foolish frontal assault that the Overmind had predicted. Except it wasn't. While the main force drew the Vrexel's attention, smaller units had been climbing the mountains themselves. No equipment, no vehicles, just soldiers with ropes and determination. Scaling cliffs that should have been impossible to climb. They reached the top and attacked from above. The Vrexel defenses, designed to face enemies from below, collapsed within hours. The warriors, confused by attacks coming from multiple directions, fell into disarray. The Overmind tried to coordinate a response. But the situation was changing too quickly. By nightfall, the humans controlled the mountain passes, but Chun did not stop there. The hive core is beneath the central peak, he told his officers. We dig. Sir, we don't have the equipment for that kind of excavation. Then we use what we have. Hands, shovels, explosives. I don't care how we get there. We're going to find that thing, and we're going to destroy it. The digging began immediately. The Overmind watched through countless eyes as the humans tore into the earth above it. It calculated escape routes, defensive options, ways to salvage the situation. For the first time in 1,000 years, it considered the possibility of defeat. And for the first time in its existence, it felt something that its vast intelligence could not process. Fear. The tunnels went deeper than anyone expected. Colonel Chun led the assault team personally. 2,000 soldiers, the best he had left, descending into darkness that seemed to swallow their lights. The walls around them were not stone, they were flesh. Living tissue that pulsed and breathed, covered in veins that glowed with sickly green light. Stay focused, Chun said through the communication system. Watch your corners. They know we're coming. They had been digging for 9 days. 9 days of constant work, constant Vrexel counterattacks, constant casualties. But they had broken through. They had found the entrance to the hive core. Now they were inside. Lieutenant Kiva walked near the middle of the formation. She had stopped sending reports 2 days ago. She did not know how to describe what she was seeing. She did not have words for it. The first chamber they entered was massive, a cavern the size of a city, filled with structures that looked like a nightmare version of a factory. Tubes connected everything, carrying fluids of different colors. Machines that were partly organic and partly mechanical produced equipment for the Vrexel armies. Destroy it, Chun ordered. Destroy everything. The humans spread out, planting explosives, firing at critical systems, tearing apart whatever they could reach with their hands. The cavern began to collapse around them, but they did not stop. They moved deeper. The second chamber was worse. Kiva stopped at the entrance, unable to make herself go further. She had served in the coalition military for 30 years. She had seen battles, seen death, seen the aftermath of Rexel invasions. She had never seen anything like this. Bodies, thousands of them, millions, species from across the galaxy, suspended in tanks of clear liquid, connected to the hive core by thousands of tubes. Most were dead, their forms withered and empty, drained of everything that made them alive. Some were not dead. They hung in their tanks, eyes open, mouths moving in silent screams. The Vrexel had kept them alive for years, harvesting their genetic material, using their bodies as raw resources for the hive. Private Taurus stood beside Kiva, staring at the horror before them. "Children," he said quietly. "Some of them are children." Kiva looked where he was pointing. Small bodies, dozens of them, floating in tanks near the center of the chamber. Their eyes were still open. Their mouths still moved. They had been here for years, alive, aware, suffering. Something changed in the humans at that moment. Kiva had watched them fight for weeks. She had seen their determination, their stubbornness, their refusal to give up. She had thought she understood what drove them. She was wrong. What she saw now was not determination. It was not courage. It was something far older, far darker. It was rage. Colonel Chun walked through the chamber, looking at each tank, each body, each face frozen in endless agony. When he spoke, his voice was calm. Too calm. "Find the core," he said. "Find whatever is controlling this place, and bring it to me." The soldiers spread out. They were no longer fighting a battle. They were hunting. The Overmind tried to stop them. It sent every warrior it had left. It collapsed tunnels, flooded chambers with toxic gas, released biological weapons that should have killed everything they touched. The humans did not slow down. They tore through the defenses like they were made of paper. When their weapons failed, they used their hands. When their hands broke, they kept going. Kiva watched a soldier continue fighting after losing both legs, crawling through the tunnels. Dragging himself toward the enemy, he killed 6 Rexel before he finally stopped moving. The core chamber was at the deepest point of the hive. It was smaller than Kiva expected, a room perhaps 50 meters across, dominated by a single massive organism. The Overmind itself, or at least its physical form. A mountain of flesh and machinery, pulsing with the thoughts of billions of connected minds. Chun stood before it. "You took them," he said. "You took innocent people. You kept them alive while you used them like fuel. Children. You did this to children." The Overmind spoke. Not with a voice. It had no mouth, no lungs, but directly into their minds. Its words appeared like thoughts that did not belong to them. "We do not understand. They are resources. All life is resources. This is the way of survival." "No," Chun said. "This is not survival. This is evil. And evil has consequences. You cannot destroy us. We are billions. We span the galaxy. Even if you kill this form, we will continue. Maybe, but you won't continue here." Chun raised his hand. Behind him, soldiers began placing explosives around the chamber. Dozens of them. "Then hundreds. You will die with us. I know." The Overmind was silent for a long moment. "We do not understand you. Your mathematics are wrong. Your tactics make no sense. You sacrifice yourselves for no gain. Why? Why do you fight this way?" Chun looked at the massive creature before him. Then he looked back at his soldiers, the ones who had followed him into this darkness, knowing they might never come out. "Because some things matter more than survival," he said. "Because those people you tortured, those children you used, they deserved better. And if we can't save them, we can at least make sure you pay for what you did. This is not logical. Double quotes. No, it's human. He turned to Kiva. Get out of here. Take whoever wants to leave and go. Tell the coalition what happened here. Tell them what we found. Tell them what we did. Colonel, that's an order, Lieutenant. Someone has to remember. Kiva wanted to argue. She wanted to say something that would make this better, that would change what was about to happen. But there were no words for this. There was no logic, no strategy, no calculation that could process what she was witnessing. So she ran. She gathered what survivors would follow her and fled through the tunnels, up toward the surface, away from the darkness below. Behind her, she heard explosions, felt the ground shake, saw the walls beginning to collapse. When she reached the surface, the mountain was falling. The hive core imploded, taking Colonel Chun, his soldiers, and the Overmind with it. The shock wave spread across the northern continent, destroying every remaining Vrexel structure, every organic building, every trace of their presence. By the time the sun rose the next morning, there was nothing left. The humans had won. The price was everything. The war ended 18 months after Karsis Prime. The Vrexel, who had expanded for 1,000 years without stopping, suddenly began to retreat. They abandoned world after world, pulling back to the empty spaces between galaxies, fleeing from something they had never faced before. An enemy they could not predict, could not understand, could not defeat. The coalition celebrated. Parades filled the streets of 100 worlds. Monuments were built. Songs were sung. After 12 years of darkness, there was finally light. Admiral Thesavorn did not celebrate. She sat alone in her quarters, reading the reports from Karsis Prime, the official ones and the classified ones, the ones that describe what Lieutenant Kiva had witnessed, what the humans had found, what they had done. 40,000 soldiers had landed on that planet. 9,000 came back, and those 9,000 were different from the ones who had landed. Their eyes were empty. Their voices were flat. They spoke of what happened in the tunnels only when directly ordered to, and even then, their words were hollow, as if describing events that had happened to someone else. They had won. But winning had cost them something that could not be measured. The Coalition Council met in closed session 6 weeks after the war officially ended. Representatives from all 47 member species gathered to discuss the future of the galaxy. Trade agreements, reconstruction efforts, memorial services for the fallen, and one other matter. The human question, the Keth representative called it. What do we do with them now? Vorn listened as the debate unfolded around her. Some argued for full integration. The humans had saved the coalition. They deserved membership, voting rights, a seat at the table. Others argued for caution. The humans were unpredictable, dangerous, too different from other species to be trusted. The Pelian ambassador spoke last. I have read the reports from Karsis Prime, she said. I have seen the recordings Lieutenant Kiva made. I have spoken with the survivors, both human and coalition, and I have reached a conclusion that fills me with shame. The chamber fell silent. The humans saved us. They did what no other species could do, what no other species would even attempt. They walked into darkness and paid a price that should have been ours to pay. And now, looking at what they are capable of, I find myself feeling something I did not expect. She paused. I am afraid of them. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Vorn said nothing. They do not think like us, the Pelian continued. They do not fight like us. They do not value what we value. When pushed to their limits, they become something other, something that does not calculate, does not negotiate, does not stop. I saw the recordings of what happened in the Hive Core. Those soldiers knew they were going to die. They did not hesitate. They did not run. They walked into death like it was an old friend. She looked around the chamber. What happens when there are no more Vrexel? What happens when humanity looks for another enemy? What if that enemy is us? The debate lasted 7 hours. In the end, the vote was unanimous. Human military forces were hereby banned from participating in any coalition conflict. Human ships would be restricted to their own sector of space. Human expansion would be monitored and controlled. The humans would remain allies officially, at least, but they would be kept at a distance. For their safety, for everyone's safety. Vorn cast the deciding vote. She did not speak during the debate. She did not need to. Her vote said everything. Afterward, a human diplomat named Sarah Chun, a cousin of the colonel who had died on Karsis Prime, requested a meeting. Vorn agreed. They met in a small conference room overlooking the capital city of the coalition. Through the window, Vorn could see celebrations still continuing in the streets below. Fireworks, music, joy. Sarah Chun did not look joyful. Why? She asked simply. Vorn considered her answer carefully. Your species fights like you have nothing to lose, she said finally. Like every battle is personal. Like the universe itself has wronged you, and you intend to make it pay for that wrong. We needed that against the Vrexel. We were dying, and you saved us. Then why ban us? Because we are not dying anymore. And now we must ask ourselves a difficult question. What happens when you have no enemy left? What happens when you look around and see only potential threats? What happens when a species built for war has no war to fight? Sarah Chun was quiet for a long moment. You think we would turn on you? I think you could. And that possibility, however small, is more frightening than anything the Vrexel ever did. The Vrexel were monsters, yes. But they were predictable monsters. We understood their hunger, even if we could not stop it. You are not predictable. You are not logical. You are something the galaxy has never seen before. We saved you, Sarah said. Marcus died saving you. 30,000 humans died saving you. Yes, and we will never forget that. We will build monuments to your fallen. We will tell stories of their courage. But we will also keep our distance, because we have seen what you become when you are pushed too far, and we cannot risk facing that ourselves. Sarah Chun stood up. Her face was blank, but her eyes burned with something Vorn could not identify. My cousin was a good man. He believed in protecting innocent people. He died destroying an evil that would have consumed this galaxy. And this is how you honor him? By treating his people like weapons to be locked away when they're no longer useful. Vorn met her gaze. Yes. Sarah nodded slowly. We will remember this, Admiral. Not with anger. Not with plans for revenge. But we will remember. When the next threat comes, and there is always a next threat, you will call us again. You will need us again. And we will come, because that is who we are. We do not abandon those who need help, even those who fear us. She walked to the door and stopped. But when that day comes, I hope you remember what you did here. I hope you remember how you treated the people who saved your civilization. Because we will remember. Humans always remember. She left without another word. Admiral Thesa Vorn stood alone in the conference room for a long time, watching the celebrations below, thinking about the future. The humans returned to their corner of the galaxy. They built new ships, trained new soldiers, watched the stars and waited. The coalition watched them back, with gratitude and terror mixed in equal measure. And somewhere, in the spaces between galaxies, the remaining Vrexel told stories to each other. Stories about a species that could not be predicted, could not be stopped, could not be understood. Stories about monsters that looked like prey. Stories about humans. The galaxy was at peace, but peace, as the humans knew better than anyone, never lasted forever. And when it ended, they would be ready. They always were.